Hey guys, welcome back. Another unpopular opinions in Pokemon. We're getting there. We're getting to the end of this thread, but the problem is the thread never dies. Thanks very much once again to Sakari for creating this monster of a thread. And check out his YouTube channel, link in the description. As always, in these unpopular opinion videos, we got to give credit to the creator, the mastermind behind this disgusting thread. So, first up, we have 4th star TCG, who says, the unpopular opinion thread has become a collection of two things: popular opinions, people trying too hard to be edgelords, and posting opinions they don't really hold but enjoy seeing people get mad about them. Now, which one is this post? Your guess is as good as mine. Maybe popular opinion. We are going to be including more photos. I had a few people mention in the last one. I probably should have added, not everyone that posts in the thread posts a picture of what they're talking about or examples. So we squeezed a few of those in there just in case there are some examples or some cards that people aren't familiar with. And that should be a little bit more helpful and or entertaining. Next up, we have Celebi, who says, may have been stated already, but I believe that the first edition base set Charizard is overhyped. From an artwork perspective, I believe that Arita's artwork for Skyridge Celebi and Theater versus Altomare's Latios and Latias are far superior. No offense, but the base set Charizard is simply just Charizard in front of a plain background. Arita's masterful artworks for Theater vs Altomare's Latios and Latias are essentially two different perspectives from the same scene. I do always love when artworks have a story or something in common, or when there's a pair of Pokemon that are done by the same artist and they have like matching artwork to a degree. I always think that's an extra treat. I feel like it happens far less than it should. Like if there's a trio of Pokemon, maybe get all three done by the same artist. It kind of makes for a nice experience when you look at them together. From a Pokemon perspective, I believe that Blaziken and Reshiram are cooler fire types. From a collector/rarity perspective, I prefer cards that could only be attained via participation in some event, i.e. Masaki promos, trainer certification, play promos. Though I understand others' opinions are just as valid as mine, and that many believe Charizard is the best Pokemon and that the base set Charizard has the best design. So I don't know. I don't know if anyone ever really argues that the base set Charizard has the best design. I think more the significance that it has. So, and not even so much in terms of play. It's more the fact that it's the original Charizard. When you're a kid, most kids like edgy fire Pokemon, and he was just that. He was the only one of the trio that evolved when Ash had him. He was mad ass attitude, and he wouldn't listen to Ash. Also super, super strong. So strong that he couldn't be controlled, basically. So there's a lot that plays into it. Also, the high damage, high HP on the card itself. As a little kid, when the game came out, kids love that shit. They want high numbers. They still do, to an extent. And even though the numbers are getting more and more ridiculous at this point. But yeah, that's just what it comes down to. Also, it's hard to... I think I've said this like a million times, but hard to compare the base set. The base set was the base set. It was, the game just came out. The Pokemon were just a Pokemon with usually nothing in the background, or very little in the background, or very little effort put into the background. So that's kind of where you run into that. Versus, later on, especially if you compare to today's Pokemon cards, there's like no competition in terms of, even if it's the same artist doing it. But yes, these are two extremely beautiful cards. We got the Latias and the Latios. Very nice. Hollow works well because it's like the sky. Can't disagree. I also really like these two Pokemon. Probably my two favorite legendaries. 90s Mayo says base set holo rares should have had non-holo versions as well. Disagree. Hard disagree. I hate that Jungle and Fossil did this. And it's either got to be one or the other. Although, I don't know. It's kind of the same premise with reverses. So even reverses, I think I'd rather see something different. Make the reverses like the shiny version of a Pokemon or something. And whether or not you want to add foil to it as well, by all means. I think it'd be cool if it was like a baby shiny treatment, so you'd have your full set, and then you'd have like a full set of baby shiny reverses. It might be too much in terms of like reverse, or not reverse, but shiny. Too much shiny exposure that people don't care anymore, but not all that glitters says Pikachu shouldn't belong in the category of original Kanto starters. I mean, that's kind of true. I don't know if you would count the other games. Like, would Pikachu and Eevee both count? But at the same time, I think he's kind of like a pseudo starter, maybe, because of Yellow being introduced later. If you want to count it as that, I think that's kind of a more fair assessment. Collector says, most of the people who make fun of the true collector meme have either A, never had to stand up for anything, or B, forgotten the difference between the people who enjoy Pokemon and the rats who no longer laugh at those who do. Know thy enemy. I don't know. There might be a theme in this one here where people are just taking stuff a little bit too seriously. Again, just collect whatever you enjoy. I mean, it's all good to, if you're in good faith teasing someone about collecting something or saying that like, oh, the yellow borders are crappy, by all means, whatever. Or if they like miscuts. So Eevee Team says miscut or off-center cards are overrated. I agree, but I totally understand why people like them, especially if there's like a piece of another card on there. I think that kind of brings it to a whole nother level. And I can see the appeal in that more so than something that's just really off-center. Usually I'm not super interested in finding the perfect center card or anything like that, as long as it's reasonable and it doesn't detract from looking at the card itself. You're not like, oh my god, what happened to that thing? Then I'm usually okay with it. But yeah, no, I have a Mewtwo, and he's painfully off center, and to the point that it starts to bother me a little bit. But that's about it. Usually, typically, if something's a little off center, who cares? That is just bad quality control. Not a good card. It's amazing how in the sports card world, off-center kills value, but in Pokemon it is desired. So I wonder, I don't know a whole lot about in terms of like stuff that's off-centered, but I would imagine that in the sports card world, if you have something that's like error-worthy, or if you have like Michael Jordan's legs on top of his head, it's probably going to be worth some money. But slightly off-center, probably not. Although, I don't know. How much does an actual like barely off-center or just qualifies as off-center card really help the value? Probably not all that much. Zebedee says Logan's case is real. That is, I guess I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion at this point, or now it's a false opinion. Nelson says, is Gold Stars look 10 times better in Japanese than in English? An unpopular opinion. I think it depends on what group of people you ask. If you ask me, I don't prefer one over the other. The border is, even though they're drastically different colors, to me, I don't really care. It's not really ruining my experience if it's one or the other. I'd rather have the English card just because, I'm English. I speak English. I collected English. I've always collected English. And there's so much English that where I'm collecting master sets of it, I don't have time to even think about collecting Japanese unless it's something maybe eventually that is Japanese exclusive. But if it's a Gold Star that's in both languages, I'm going to take the English one. But I can see why people obsess over the borders quite a bit. To me, I don't really care. I guess it depends on which card you're looking at. Other than the Umbreon and the Espeon are hollow in Japanese, where they were in Pop Series in English, so they're non-hollow. But I like that they're non-hollow in English because then the packs aren't weighable and it adds a cool little, mini game that's probably not very affordable to do so. There's certain cards. So here, like where he's got kind of like a little bit of yellow here, and he's got the, the yellow star and the yellow. You got the lightning energies. kind of works with the yellow, but maybe certain ones are better or worse than others. 90s Mayo says, I seriously don't get why people hate battle styles or rag on it as being the worst set. It's got some stuff for everyone. Feel like people forget how bad it can be with sets like emerging powers. I don't know. I guess battle styles just turned into the new Steam Siege, where Steam Siege is getting old and expensive enough that people can't make fun of it anymore. Or maybe that just got played out, the meme, so now they got to pick on battle styles, which is a fine set. There's nothing wrong with battle styles. Unless you really hate Urshifu, then maybe. Sleepy Tea, I still need my copy of Sleepy Tea. Someday I'll pull it. But I don't know. It's a good set. So is Chilling Reign. People are silly. It's just even in terms of like modern, if you want to go like Sword and Shield era, I don't know. I would think that Rebel Clash and or Darkness Ablaze are probably worse if I had to like rank them than battle styles. Like, we're just gonna forget the fact that there's alternate arts, and there wasn't really anything to compete with those alternate arts from the earlier Sword and Shield sets. So I don't know. I think it's a lot of people that maybe because of the abundance of it, maybe because it's in different products at the moment, because it's available, they want to hate on it. Kind of the same thing with Steam Siege. I think it was a lot to do with it was being pumped into all the products. Same thing happened to Evolutions, which now everyone has a boner for. But at one point in time, it was in every product, and people were complaining that it was in every product because they didn't want to see those cards anymore. But now, flipped completely in the opposite direction. Goofy says, collectors think buying vintage Pokemon cards from Japan sellers automatically means better condition cards. Japan did not collect Pokemon cards in the 1990s. They played. Most vintage Pokemon from Japan are in bad shape in reality. So maybe they're getting it mixed up. The fact that like the print quality was probably better on a lot of these sets versus actually what condition the cards are going to be in if you buy them from Japan versus if you buy them from somewhere else. I mean, unless you're buying them from somewhere that guarantees condition, so it could depend on the store or source of how they rate different cards. Then I guess, you can have more or less reliable condition cards. Lavender Gengar. Collecting isn't all about mint cards. Sometimes light played, moderate played cards cost a fraction and are still gorgeous. So this is kind of what everyone needs to realize. If you're on a budget, when people are like, oh my God, a PSA 10 of that is too expensive. People can't enjoy the hobby. They can't do it. What are we going to do? Well, don't buy a PSA 10 copy. If you're putting a binder together, even my binders where I'm trying to get everything in near mint or mint, definitely excessive in terms of, just being able to enjoy them. You get some light play stuff, you put it in a binder, looks beautiful, you still have it. Maybe you have the binder, maybe you have graded copies as well of your favorite cards. Up to you. But there's another way to make the hobby extremely affordable. People complain about how base set Charizard isn't reprinted enough into celebrations, into evolutions, into everything else. Just buy a copy that's in lesser condition. Buy a base unlimited copy, buy a base set 2 copy. Whatever you got to do. There's affordable versions of all these cards. McMimi says Steam Siege is a decent set. I would agree. I think the meme got a little bit played out and was kind of a little bit exaggerated to begin with, just because Steam Siege didn't stunk 420 right off the bat. People hated on it. It's got shinies in it. People love the sets with shinies in them, but for some reason maybe they just don't realize that there's shinies in Steam Siege. Who knows? Also with the Gardevoirs in there, it's like one of the most popular Pokemon. So, 90s Mayo. Can't believe saying Chilling Reign is a good set is a hot take now. Easily the first good and interesting Sword and Shield set. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily the first good and interesting Sword and Shield set, but the later Sword and Shield sets, just like the later Sun and Moon sets, they started packing more goodies into them. Your Cosmic Eclipse, your Team Up, and Lost Thunder and stuff like that, I think are significantly better than your early on Sun and Moon sets, but maybe that's part of their business plan where they start jamming the goodies in later on to sell the newest thing. There's a little bit of a power creep, and then it'll reset a little bit when the next generation comes out, and they use the excitement from the new Pokemon. Because even like the tag teams and stuff like that everyone really liked, although at the time people were kind of not really, they weren't that hard on the tag team sets. It was only kind of recently that people really cared about them. Inazuma, not TCG related, but the Sun and Moon era video games are wonderful fun. I agree. I think they're really great games. They're a little bit too hand-holdy, but I mean, it could be just that, as you game more and you're older, it's easier to work your way through. Could have been a little bit more difficult, I think, though, regardless. I like to at least have to grind or level up a little bit, and stuff like Sword and Shield was really bad. You basically just didn't have to, attack anything outside of whatever the main objective was. And you go to a gym and there's Pokemon outside that are over leveled that you could probably beat the gym with right outside the gym. So Lavender Gengar says, a Pokemon anime, despite having some rougher seasons, is pretty entertaining, especially from Sun and Moon on. I agree. I've watched all of it. I've caught up at this point in time. And I like it. It's another one of those ways that, to watch through the entirety of it, if you're going from start to finish, would take forever. But if you gradually pick at it, I think it adds. It's almost like playing the TCG. It's another way that you can consume Pokemon content, learn about stuff, and then maybe even appreciate more of the the trading cards from that, because you learn the characters. Maybe that's why I like the character rares so much, because watching through the anime, you learn all who these characters are. Same with playing through the games. You learn the characters, you build sort of an attachment, I think more from the anime than the games to an extent, because they have more of a personality rather than reading the text. But I think both would help. Nachi says, G.I. Joe packs are going to go to the moon. I think they did that day. Not sure how they're doing now. I haven't checked in. Orion says, ETBs look great as display pieces, and they are great collector items as opposed to booster boxes. So, I had to think about this a little bit. So, like, display-wise, yeah, they're good. There's some of them that are really expensive just because people didn't collect ETBs up until recently. It wasn't a thing. People didn't really want them. For collection purposes, the price per pack is not very good. And in terms of if you're reselling them, if you're sitting on them to resell, they take up just as much space and probably right around the same weight as a booster box. So in terms of selling, not a great option either. But where they became collectible and people kind of didn't buy or keep them, there's a certain sense, like your Celestial Storm, that shot up in price. So in that aspect, yeah, kind of a good stonk dogger, but I don't know. I'd still rather have the booster boxes in terms of like space saving measures, but it's hard to say. Also, I wonder how it's going to play out like longer term, because typically if your ETB is the same price as a booster box, more people are going to open the booster box because you're getting more packs versus the ETB, where maybe the sleeves are worth something. Probably not, though. Probably not very much. So if more people end up opening the booster boxes, that drive the booster box price up, and the ETB price kind of stays where it is because people aren't opening them. Are people going to continue to collect the ETBs? Probably. If they stop making them all together and replace that product with something else, what would happen? It's interesting. I didn't see it coming. I did save a lot of ETBs. Over the years, I would usually keep some sealed stuff, like a box of each. And it's wild to see that some of the ETB prices shot up just because they're non-existent and people want to complete that sealed collection. Mewtwo's Lab says, my hot take, I find a lot of the Victory Medal artwork incredibly bland and boring. I understand the appeal from the trophy/scarcity perspective, but for the most part, they don't get me particularly excited. I kind of have to agree. I mean, if it's going to have a Pikachu on it, I guess it's iconic in some sense, but at the same time, there's certainly better, more attractive Pokemon cards that have Pikachu on them. In terms of, trophy scarcity, what they are is more important than the artwork, I would say. Same with a lot of trophies. It's not really an artwork battle. That's not really the value that's there. I'm sure part of it is, but I'd say more about the scarcity thing. Also, sorry for coming in with a hot take on my second ever post. No problem. Hermit. I hate the concept of PSA upcharge, but I'm also happy to hear that my PSA submission has incurred upcharge. Yeah, I can't say I have that issue, but I can totally get that. Jake Blue says, not sure if this has already been mentioned before. I loved how booster boxes in the early sets up till EX era always had an unobstructed art piece on the front. Boxes from DP onwards with the new design are so ugly to display, with more than half of the front taken up by a single color palette. Not sure whether they decided to make that change, but here's to hoping that they return to the old booster box design sometime in the future. So I guess the one thing about the new boxes in general, the Pokemon Company is not designing booster boxes for you to keep them sealed. That's not what they're intended for. Whether or not people do that is a different story. But the biggest thing is going to be cost and how they display and ease of display. So if they can do this and it works fine for setting it up when they have it in the store, you're not really even supposed to buy a booster box, really. And in a sense, typically that's more supposed to be a display for the game store. And these function as such. I think someone also mentioned the fact that it would be harder to tamper with these or to reseal or anything like that, do any shenanigans, because you can see the packs inside. Where with these bad boys, we've seen multiple times now where people fake wrap, rewrap, whatever they got to do, and scammeroni. Then we have the Japanese boxes. I guess you could, if you really wanted the artwork and the old style, you could collect the Japanese boxes instead. Would do the trick. Lavender Gengar, U.S. marketing department is absolutely atrocious. I agree. I disagree with a lot of the choices that they make, but that's just it. You can't predict what they're going to do. I wish that I could, but no one can, because there's a lot of stuff that they do that doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why they don't have more promotions or cool events and stuff like that, or cool promos, anything like that. There's definitely a lack of it. Celery says, all sealed boxes go up. They probably do, depending on what packs are inside, but not at the same rates. I mean, yes, but they can also come back down. But in the general sense of things, if you're talking from an MSRP to 10 years from now, yes, as long as Pokemon doesn't completely die off or die off at a significant level, anything that you buy at MSRP is going to be more expensive. Whether or not it's significantly more expensive is a different story. Whether or not there's something that you could have done with that money that is a better option, again, another different scenario. But yeah, we've seen a lot of boxes that went up and a lot of boxes that crashed back down, specifically with whether it has reprints or just the market going bananas like it did. Stuff can definitely retrace. So always goes up is a little bit of a statement that I probably wouldn't make without some kind of stipulations that you're talking about MSRP or something and a long enough time frame. Wise Whalmer says everything worth collecting has already been printed/made. Hard disagree. Enigma says Tinsel Hollow still underrated. So Tinsel Hollow, we got Pokemon, shout out to them, Pokemon.com. This is what he's talking about, the Tinsel Hollow here, the black and white horizontal line kind of thing. Not my favorite. I don't mind it. I'm not like a big stickler on like, oh, it's got to be Cosmos or it's got to be whatever. I don't really care as long as they change it up. I hope they change it up quite a bit for the next set. The Sword and Shield currently is basically just a vertical version of this, or what we got in like black and white regular hollows. Coop13 says, I love watching all the Pokemon social media drama. Well, you're in the right place. Logan Paul, Crypto Guru, fake boxes, Instagram fights, you name it. It's better than reality TV. Watching from the sidelines has honestly been a huge source of enjoyment. I think whether or not people want to admit it, they enjoy it as well. Inert Geometry says, here's my arguably most unpopular opinion. Pokemon cards have never looked better than today. Yeah, there are plenty of things to gripe about with set construction, etc. But anyone denying that the special arts, alt arts, whatever you want to call the full art textured secret rares with elaborate and intricate illustrations are the most amazing pieces of card art we've ever had. It needs to get their heads out of their buns and take off their nostalgia tinted glasses. You're missing out on the greatest cards to behold and admire that have come out to date. So I'd have to agree. There's certain eras, they all have their charm, they all have their place in the hobby, the TCG. I love that it changes, but yes, if you're just going head to head on artwork and card and whatever, no nostalgia involved, no history involved, modern kicks everything up the butthole. Brendan the Clayboy has a short story for us here. When it comes to TCG, it's not purely about the art, it is everything that encompasses the whole layout, the overall aesthetic of the card, and the design style and execution, the medium through which they illustrate, the reason why many Neo, E-Series, Artwork, EX, etc., EX era, and old promos are still revered so much above all else in most eyes is because they look so aesthetically good, whilst having such a phenomenal art style, usually hand-drawn, but in the event of great CG illustrations, have a heavy atmosphere and composition to make intricately evocative renderings that strike the viewer, and of course the history to them, but that's another matter. So maybe we'll just take a look through the examples here. I mean, you can, even like within any artist, there's usually like their best work, or, you know, it's all going to be subjective regardless. But comparing certain cards to other cards, certain artwork to other artwork, like the old Tyranitar's here, beautiful cards, but at the same time, like Sleepy Tea. Gotta love Sleepy Tea. Alt arts in general. So, I don't know. I think the variety is my favorite part. I like seeing the different artists. I like seeing what they do. I like seeing what they did before compared to what they do now. How their art has changed when maybe they put more effort into the recent stuff than they used to in the past. It all comes down to that. Xylete says, I never really thought of it before, but autographs really ruin the card. Black ink scrawled half legibly across what is otherwise an immaculate card with great balance and symmetry. Why? But wait, I have a few. What's wrong with me? So, personally, I wouldn't pay for an autograph. At least like from someone else. If there was a signing event or something like that, I got to meet the artist and they signed the card for me. That would be another situation. Of course, I'm not like getting a PSA 10, cracking it out or something for the sake of this. It would be a personal card. It would be something that I'm not selling to anyone. So that's kind of where that comes in. I don't know what others think. I know people do like autographs on the card, on the case. Personally, I'd rather have it in person. Whether or not they send it to me directly with the intention of it coming to me, I'd rather have that. Or even better, to meet the artist at an event, they sign the card for me, and I can stick it in my binder. But yeah, it wouldn't be like a financial reason in any way. It would just be a cool kind of memory piece. SPDF says, Espeon Gold Star is a better looking card than Umbreon Gold Star. I wish they chose Espeon over Umbreon for Celebrations reprints. Never know, maybe Celebrations 2 will come out. And Celebrations 2 for the 30th anniversary. So here's the two. For anyone that's not familiar with these bad boys, these are the English ones that I was talking about earlier that do not have holo foil because they're from Pop Series, which doesn't have holo foil cards. The Pop Series cards that are holo foil came from tins and crap. There were more like promos than actual Pop Series. I don't know why they did that, but they did that. But Umbreon, Espeon never got a holographic version in English, which I don't know. I think that adds to the charm. Umbreon definitely is the more popular Pokemon. You guys let me know down below which one you like better, Umbreon, Espeon. I like them both. I kind of think if you have one, you gotta have the other. It's not like a one or the other thing. The Pokemon Trader says, I'm not 100% sure how unpopular my view/opinion is, but it is that no rarity cards are the true first edition and first ever cards in our hobby. Either way, I love all Pokemon related stuff, mostly if it's vintage. I'm very new to efour, so looking to make new friends on here. I don't know if this is an 8sin alternate account, but it sounds like it. That or maybe Chumley. Inert says, here's one people might not want to hear. Grading companies should treat cards like comics/games where they round to the nearest 10th at the least. I would have more respect for a card that managed to get a 9.9 or a 9.8 than just rounding up to a 9.5 to a 10. Most of y'all are just collecting numbers, especially when it comes to hard to grade cards like T17. Edit, I know this argument could be twisted, saying, where does it stop? Should we go to the nearest 100th, 1000th? At what point it's too much? But in my opinion, more decimals remove the aspect of people collecting sets in a certain grade and instead lead to people collecting cards in a certain quality, whether it's the highest grade or just something above certain threshold. So I think to get into this, like you saw Leonhardt send in cards to BGS and like they would change, they would fluctuate by 0.5. To be able to regrade something and have it hit like within a 0.1 scale is just not going to happen. Maybe too much. I don't think the thing is with this and with everyone else is you're assuming that they're actually spending a lot of time on your cards, and they're not. They're flipping and dipping it, sticking it in a plastic case. Like, I don't know how many cards they have to do per hour, but it's probably a lot, and they're not spending nearly as much time on your cards as you think they are. Look at CGC with their, non-subgrades where they don't even bother to calculate using the subgrades. So if they can get away with quickly slapping a 9, slapping a 10, slapping an 8, 8.5, whatever, they're going to do it, and that's what they do because it makes more money. Especially when they have the backlog that they do, you can expect them to be taking even less time per card than usual. They got to put it in overdrive. Wilchi, I don't know if that's how you actually pronounce that, but that's what we're going with. Since we're comparing old to new cards, there's something I've always wanted to bring up that I haven't ever seen anyone else mention. Old holographic cards have a texture that new cards lack, which makes newer cards feel cheaper to me. Any older holo free surface scratches has subtle texture to that holo that I love. Compare that to the newer cards like GXs, which are very smooth and almost zero texture whatsoever. Newer holo cards have some slight texture, but it's not nearly the same, and they're ruined by terrible holo patterns anyways. Old holo with surface texture. So this is kind of interesting. I guess it's just like the materials used. Maybe the holo foil back then was not as smooth, or maybe the application of the holo foil left sort of a texture to it, but not something that I really care about necessarily. I don't think it makes a big difference. There are a lot of the newer cards where, like, if you put your thumb on it, even if your hands are very clean, it's so smooth and so glossy that you will see like little fingerprints and marks and smudges, versus the older stuff where you could probably like rub it on your butt and still not see anything. We got a new holo with very little texture. So here it has the lines or whatever. It does have texture to an extent. Just whatever, probably the cardstock texture underneath, probably more than anything, because I would imagine that the foil itself is probably pretty smooth. We have, I tried my best to capture the surface and any texture of the card, and up and close you can clearly see the difference between old hollows and the texture they have in the newer cards with glossy smooth surface. Yes. Again, not something that is make or break for me. Wolfsluck says, I didn't think when I opened up the spoiler thread for the new game that I would end up posting here, but I actually like all of the new Hisuian forms, especially Dialga, apart from what I'm going to assume is supposed to be a separate Evo for Sneasel, as there's no way that lanky thing is a Weavile. No, that's a Sneasler, I think it is. I don't know if I like all of them. I never really sat down to think. I kind of like Sneasler. I think the Zorua and Zoroark are probably my favorite Hisuian forms. The Voltorb is pretty badass too. Voltorb Electrode. But yeah. Inert says, probably an unpopular opinion, people who hate on 5-band but like Gen 3 EX artworks are hypocrites. Yeah, they're not too far off. I know there are exceptions, but most of the EX artworks are by Rio EX, whose style at the time looked barely better than the N64 graphics featured in Pokemon Snap cards, whereas at least 5-band's stuff is more polished and has aged better. I personally don't like either, and would always prefer artwork with a full background integrated to give more of a setting. I think the background is the biggest thing for me, even if it's CG artworks. I think I'd prefer the background, something going on there, rather than just like a full artwork of the Pokemon. Although, I don't know. I don't know if that would really work with your Rainbow boys or with your full art boys. I know it was a conscious style choice to go with the EX gimmick, but in my opinion, the best part of that style of card is the border also being hollow, which you can find in lv.x cards that are more polished graphically. I really like lv.x's. I remember at one point in time, lv.x's were no one wanted them, and same thing with primes, like a few bucks a piece. I know my profile picture is Umbreon EX, but that's just because, in my opinion, it is one of the only Rio EX artworks that don't look incredibly dated. Not sure if it was the angle or lighting used, but it doesn't look like early 2000s CGI and matches the Umbreon star nicely. I wish this wasn't the case because I would love to have other Evolution EX cards along with some of my other favorite Pokemon that had EX cards, but they all just look bad to me. So here we got the Rio. We'll look at the first page maybe here. And yeah, definitely some similarities between that and our 5-bands. I mean, you can find good and bad kind of within any of it, all based on preference really. I think it's kind of nice, the full art stuff. I think they should change it up a little bit more often, but to have them all consistent and from the same artist and the same style for that type of card is kind of good. Osmofo says, I never read this thread, so I'm assuming this has been said by somebody who had similar sentiment, but still probably unpopular. When Pokemon was in its WotC original 99 English boom, and as a kid wanting the WotC product only, whenever I saw or was accidentally given as a birthday or Christmas gift the Topps version, I was very sad / disappointed / disgusted. So I've always thought of Topps Pokemon cards as a joke. I was kind of the same way. It was almost in my area growing up, the cards were sold out. The like base set, even base set unlimited, you couldn't buy it. It was very hard to find in the store. It was so popular that it instantly sold out everywhere. So there was often like the Topps alternative, and kids, well, me specifically, and I'm sure some of the other kids, you didn't want Topps. Topps was like the Pokemon. We had Pokemon cards at home, equivalent to the actual TCG. We wanted the actual TCG, even though when we did play the game, we were kind of making up rules. We still wanted the real deal. The Topps cards were cool. They had the Pokemon on them, but not quite the same thing. Euphoric TCG says, I know this has already been said, but Master Scroll and Key are very tacky and ugly and honestly shouldn't be worth more than a box of crayons. So I think this is more of a rarity thing. But yeah, at the same time, if you're trying to convince people that they're the most beautiful cards ever, you're probably kidding yourself and the person that you're talking to. Not that they're necessarily bad looking cards, but they just look like a trainer that was, from any of the sets at the time, and had like a hollow foil treatment. So if you put these in an actual set and you put them in the rare slot and the hollow slot, and some kid got these, or anyone got these instead of a hollow Pokemon, they would have been pissed off. Kind of like trainers back in the day when you got a trainer rare. It was a bad day, especially if you didn't get very many packs. If you're only getting your one booster pack or your couple booster packs and you get trainer rares, it was a kick in the nuts. So here's your scroll for anyone wondering. Yeah, it's basically just a trainer card with foil on it, and the key. But yeah, this is another scenario where once you get into trophies and stuff like that, it's more the rarity that you're paying for than necessarily the artwork. No one's saying, "Oh damn, that key is that is one sexy key," without at least taking into consideration the rarity. Caught at Point says this thread has English market thread energy. Yeah, I would imagine. I would think that like most people, even the people that are collecting the Japanese stuff, for the most part, they're collecting English as well. Not to mention the language on the forum is English, so you're going to see a lot of that. Other than your people that collect, you don't have the same options for trophy cards in English as you do in Japanese. So if you're going to have all the Japanese trophies and people that collect that sort of thing, yeah. Not quite, but for the most part, a lot of those people even will collect English as well, at least to some extent. Squirtle 1000, whether it be like first edition base, first edition WotC, whatever. This thread has a lot of emotionally charged judgmental opinions. You'll see a lot of comments here to the effect of English sucks, print quality is terrible, Japanese is stupid, you can't even read it. Early WotC is ugly, the artwork is boring, modern is nothing but overprinted junk, binder collectors are the only true collectors. You literally can't win, no matter what niche you are in. There's going to be someone here that will not just criticize it, they will take it a step farther and treat you like you are personally stupid for your preferences. I think you might be overestimating the amount that people care, or maybe taking it a little bit too seriously. Again, collect whatever you like, and like if other people disagree with what you want to collect, it doesn't matter. I admit it's interesting to observe through a human psychology lens. Again, I think you're probably just taking it a little bit too serious. Half of this unpopular opinions thread is probably just trolling, but also people just like to razz on each other. It's not anything. They don't really hate you for what you're collecting. Maybe someone on there does, but probably not too many people. My guess is that in such an enormous hobby, some people are insecure about their own place within it. They pick their niche and take cheap shots at everyone else's, perhaps to combat any feelings of FOMO they might otherwise experience if they acknowledge those other niches as legitimate. No, I don't think that's it. So like, maybe are you taking it too seriously because of maybe you're insecure about any of the following? Or maybe you think that others, I'm not sure. I don't think this is as serious as you think, Squirtle, but it's okay. It's all going to be okay. Everyone's okay. Anyway, I do wish we could all just acknowledge that there's something here for everyone to enjoy. My interests don't have to be yours, and vice versa. I think this is the most important part, and 100% true, and totally the full takeaway from this. So don't worry about this stuff. Don't worry about other people. Don't worry about what other people think. I mean, Pokemon in general, you have to kind of not worry about what other people think, because a lot of people in the real world are going to be like, what the hell, you collect Pokemon cards? But even within it, just do you do you, and nothing else matters. If you agree, disagree on stuff, it's fine to do so. For the most part, it's in a respectful manner, and or people are just joking. So take that into consideration as well. If someone really hates you for what you collect, you just ignore that person. They're probably not worth your time. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for joining the Discord. Let me know what your opinions are. Let me know what you thought about any of the unpopular opinions in this video, and I'll see you next time.